Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi music YouTuber, and today, beanie wearing YouTuber. I was just texting someone who said she's never seen me in a beanie, which is probably true. I've only worn this like a couple times. Most notably recently, because it's so cold out right now here in Savannah, but I kind of like how it looks on me for the most part, as long as it's centered like that. But you know what else is cold is the riffs that we're about to talk about today. The riffs, the production style, if you're doing it right. Because this is Nothing But Black Metal November, where we cover 60 black metal albums. And I personally challenge myself to listen to pretty much only black metal. For my own personal listening, I have only played black metal for myself, including in my car with my own CDs. I did sort of break this a little bit, as my band isn't really black metal, but you know, we're pretty blackened. So you know, I mean, and also a lot of the music we listen to here is blackened as well, and not just straightforward black metal mixes with other things. And you know, some people might say I'm not true for that, but I don't really care. I mean, like, I know some Blackened Death, you know, you might think is a little off, but, you know, I normally go for quality stuff here anyways, and plus I'll disqualify things if they don't quite match up to what I want. In this first video, we're going to review 15 of the 60 albums. Next video, I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'm going to get 2 more videos out before the end of the month, hopefully, and just cover all this stuff. So today we're covering the first 15. I introduced these on my last video if you guys want to go watch that. If not, you don't have to, because I'm about to mention them all again. And no, I'm not going to mention the next 45 because I really don't feel like it, and that would just take more time, because 60 albums is a lot to say in a row, particularly when these are in other languages. But without further ado, let's just get into these, and I'll tell you what I think about them. First, we got some Norwegian black metal. This is Lia with Tilavsky for Livet. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I do like it. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I do like it. So this is some pretty cool black metal, lightning fast. This thing is crazy on the riffs, and it goes straight for the throat. It's got a bit of the thrashy vibes going on, you know. It doesn't really delve into any territory that is too somber, too melancholic, too meditative. It really goes for the speed. It is fairly standard black metal. If you think about a band like Gorgoroth, you're probably going to get something kind of similar to this, but I think the riff quality here is very solid. The atmosphere that it lends is also pretty effective. You know, it feels dark, feels pretty evil. The vocals are intense and very wretched. They remind me a lot of Rest from Leviathan. But the riffs are really the key to the album here. So if you want some riffs, because black metal, you kind of hear for the riffs anyways, even though the atmosphere is the real reason you listen to black metal, has some riffs. So I give this one a great, which is a very nice way to start off the chart. Does it beat Drowning the Light from last year? No, but I am a big fan of this thing. And moving on, we got some melodic black metal with Vinterland's Welcome My Last Chapter. I saw this thing and I didn't have high hopes for it. It was another purplish melodic black metal album, but actually what I got was something very cold with a lot of good riffs. And it's loud and it's gritty. And it is melodic, but it is just enough so to be fun. It's not too melodic to be distracting like Dissection can tend to be. I don't know a whole lot of Swedish black metal other than Bathory, but this does retain that grim tone that some Bathory listens do have. It does have that atmosphere that really everyone looks for. As I behold The Dying Sun and I believe Vinterskogen, I don't know how to pronounce these, they both have excellent variety. That tiny bit of progressiveness in the songwriting here is something that's really nice, and it does not overstay its welcome at all. It's really just enough to give it the momentum it needs. There's a spoken word bit, which tends to be like cringe pagan LARP, but here it's actually not bad, which is kind of a good mark of an album. You know, if it's not cringe, then geez, I mean, you're one step there. But this is a fun album. It's a dynamic album. It's full of bangers. So I have to say it's great. And now, album number 3, and this one is going to be controversial for me. This is Ruins of Beverast, Rain Upon the Impure. And this has some issues that I thought the Thule Grimoires had, which was nearing my album of the year list, I believe 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago at this point. And it's just that the momentum of this Black and Doom album here really doesn't carry itself like it should. I mean, every song here has something going for it. It's got either a riff or the atmosphere, the sludgy nature of the pacing. Something here is going for it, but it's the fact that almost every song is 10 minutes long, which every time I see an album like that in black metal, you can almost guarantee that it's not going to be great. Like the new Arismenda, Spider's Lust in the Dungeon's Dusk, or whatever it was called. Boring. Those riffs were not where it was at. But right now we're talking about a much better album, admittedly. And this is actually, I believe I added this here because it's the highest rated black metal album on the entirety of Encyclopedia Metallum, or Metal Archives if you're that kind of person. But it's actually the production here that I'm kind of iffy on. It's that a lot of the riffs will go a lot deeper, a lot lower pitched, and it's just the rawness doesn't give it anything to work with. It ends up kind of muddying the mix in a way that isn't that appealing. And you know, sometimes I like my super raw, like crunched together sounds, but I don't think this pulls it off for all of its tracks. The sound has a very particular usage, and I don't think it's perfect all the way through. Some of these tracks do feel a little bit like Mies Moore or Primitive Man, with the doom-laden atmosphere really just being suffocating, but I feel like it does not engage as much as it should. I think, honestly, this album would benefit from being maybe 10 minutes shorter. I will think the second track here is probably my favorite here. It's a really just bass blend of this huge doomy nature with all these black metal textures, and it's a really nice mix where you've got the really slow pace, but those really awesome chuggy tremolo riffs that black metal is known for when it's done correctly. Not that all black metal needs to be tremolo, but here, when it is tremolo, it's pretty great. So I do give this a good. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's a bit overrated, but you know, I lied to you guys because this isn't even on the chart anymore. I'm replacing it with a little release, a demo actually, so it's more cult, from a little label known as Rhinoceros with a V instead of a U. This is the Nebolost 2011 demo. This is one of the few bands under the Rhinoceros label that is like given a name, and it's this Black and Doom thing that is more raw and crunchy and decayed and disgusting, and it feels like it's half buried, like it's a shallow grave in a heavy downpour, and you see, and the wooden coffin is made from balsa wood, and it's just rotten away, and the body was only buried a few weeks ago, so there's a lot of flesh still on it. There goes any chance of being monetized for this video in the future. But it's just this disgusting, decrepit, broken tomb of an album. It's like barely recognizable, and yet you still know something here is very wrong. It's not like a pile of rocks on the ground. It's like there's definitely a pillar or two. There's definitely a loose structure. It's just broken. Super cult release here. Riffs are crazy. This thing is also pretty short. I think it's only around like 20-something minutes in length. 2 of the songs are named the same thing, and 3 of the songs are just untitled. It's literally like you pulled the cassette out of the ground, because like the art, the text for the song titles were rotten away. Lots of the audio parts were rotten away. Just awesome release. Check it out. And up next on the chart actually is Gorgoroth of Destroyer, or How About to Philosophize with the Hammer. This is one of the earliest albums to include infamous frontman of Gorgoroth, Gaul, who is gay, which is unique to the black metal scene, who was arrested for about a year for torturing a man. A little less unique for the black metal scene, but still pretty unique, and was known for kind of trying to steal a lot of stuff in the band, and is now known for being in a different band entirely. And here's something that's very interesting about the Norwegian black metal scene. So obviously it's the most popular of the black metal scenes, you know, all these bands got huge. But because of this, every band felt very much like a 90s band, not even in the black metal context. I'm talking about in the large context. And that is why, you know, if you get a 90s black metal band or early 2000s black metal band, there's a chance they're still going today with some good material if they're not from Norway. If they're from Norway, the chance gets lower because they tried some weird foray into something else and it didn't work as well. Immortal succeeded. They put in the thrashy elements and it was super based because those riffs go crazy and it's icy and it's battles and it's a little cheesy, but you know, it's fun. Meanwhile, you got Mayhem with Grand Declaration of War, which I do not like at all. And here you got Gorgoroth with this thing. Now, this is a rare black metal album to have a ton of inconsistencies because every song here is rather different. You actually get different vocalists on these tracks. Gall only shows up on a few. But this thing also uses some synthesizer work, which occasionally is, I'm pretty sure, just sine waves, which is, if you don't know synthesizers, there are square waves, sawtooth waves, and there are also sine waves. I'm probably missing a couple of waves. And they all have a different amount of data, I guess you could say, in them. Like a square wave is kind of hollow sounding, a sawtooth wave is kind of buzzy sounding because it's the extra textures put in to sound a bit more like an instrument. Does it sound like a real instrument that is not a synthesizer? Not really, but you could modify it further to sound like a flute or something. A sine wave is nothing but the frequency. It's literally just the note with one texture, the isolated texture. And sometimes, this could be something good, but in black metal, not a chance, bro. Black metal is known for having a ton of synthesizers. Symphonic black metal is an entire subgenre. Epic black metal is I don't know if you want to call that a real subgenre, but there's stuff you could consider a real subgenre. But sine waves is not where it's at. Don't do that in your black metal unless you're trying to be experimental, which Gorgoroth is not. They're trying to branch out and be unique. They're trying to make their own melancholy and the infinite sadness. And every Norwegian band tried to do this. Satyricon ends up doing this too, but they don't do that. They go industrial. Mayhem goes industrial. Gorgoroth uses synths that suck, but that's not even it. A lot of the production on this album does have some problems. This whole thing is intensely wild. The drums are very loud for no reason. Track 4 I like a lot here, actually. It has total opposite production from everything else going on, even though it's still kind of raw, but it sounds really different. And it has this sort of dissonant bar chord 3/4 time riff going on. If that's not true, go ahead and correct me down in the comments below, because I only really care to listen to this album one whole time, and I don't really want to go back and listen to that. But it was kind of dissonant, kind of cool. There are some clean vocals on this album, which are rough. The track Virgin Born is excellent. I do like that one, but it's overall a pretty inconsistent album. Just due to novelty factor, I do feel like giving this thing a good. But actually, at the same time of listening to this, I actually listened to Gorgoroth for the second or third time in my life by listening to their classic album, Pentagram, which is a short, 29-minute album, and it's just straightforward black metal. I think Hat was the guy who was the vocalist in this one. It is their debut. It is classic. The riffs are pretty great. First couple tracks aren't that special, but later you get this really nice dark and cold atmosphere that really makes Norwegian black metal what it is today. And the bass work from, was it King of Hell at that time? I don't honestly remember, but it was very solid and makes the album something a lot better than it was. So that's great. Listen to it over Destroyer. And up next is the demo, When the Cycle Ends by Ordo Draconis. I don't know why I found this. I think I was looking for vampiric black metal last year, and I got this really cringe symphonic black metal demo from a band that made 2 demos and then came back a decade or 2 later. This sucks. I'm gonna tell you guys straight up, symphonic black metal is not a genre that I really care too much for. Emperor can do it because they have good sounding synthesizers, but here it's just riffless, it's gutless, it's cheesy, it's stupid, it's dumb, it's nothing I care for. And I use words that were deliberately insulting because this album offends me. And on top of that, you can't even find it anywhere. I stitched together the individual tracks on YouTube like an idiot, wasting my time. So if you want to do that, then don't do that because it's bad. It's bad. So that gets a pour, but I'm actually going to replace it with something that's far more based. Cold Blooded with Sangue Barbaro, which is some really sick Portuguese black metal. It's really based. It's a raw. It's got riffs for days. Seriously, some of the best riffs in black metal. This thing is sick. Plus, look at that cover. Amazing. Is it a demo? Is it an EP? I don't even remember, but go listen to it because it's awesome. Up next on the chart, gosh, I'm spending so much time not talking about what's actually on the chart because I was dumb and picked some bad albums, is Leviathan, Tentacles of Horror. This is a re-listen. This is Leviathan's second full-length album, and wow, already it is the best album I've discussed on this chart. Is that super hard? No. The greats on here haven't been the highest greats, in my opinion, but Leviathan is truly one of those untouchable black metal bands that really have only messed up a tiny, tiny bit in the entirety of their discography. And I haven't dived into all the demos, but I'm sure those have a lot of quality as well. But Tentacles of Horror is this and 10th Sublevel are sort of the two DSBM albums that, Rest says there's no such thing, but I'm saying the more depressing vibes are given from these two. And one of them is much darker and cloudier and mystical, riff heavy, and ambience is sort of made with the guitar. And this one is bass heavy. It's synth heavy. It is extremely aggressive in comparison. And I don't know which one I like more. I think I like 10th Sublevel more, but if even putting it in the same ballpark as 10th Sublevel should kind of give you an inkling as to how much I like this one. You start off with the track What Fresh Hell, which is an iconic black metal track at this point, because it starts off with this sort of like separated dissonant chords that are from a relatively clean sound before you get one of the harshest sounds in black metal today. You'd really have to reach like a Black and Noise group, or a group that uses noise influences, or something that is like oppressively and stupidly raw, like Minima from this year, which is actually one of my albums of the year, to even get close to this amount of abrasion and hate, self-hate, self-deprecation, grime. But the album actually gets better a few tracks in. It becomes a lot more atmospheric, a lot more ambient. There's a lot more time where the bass just works by itself. The tone is completely unique. The specific production style used by Rest in a lot of his albums is so unique and murky, and it's got this really nice distortion effect on the vocals that carry the harshness to another degree, but Rest is already a fantastic vocalist. If you've ever seen like snow, like half melted and mixing with mud, that's kind of like if you were able to trudge through like feet of that, that's what this album is. It's cold, it's gross, it's oppressive, it's unholy, it's hateful, misanthropic, self-hating, really everything everyone loves in black metal. Vexed and Vomit Hexed, I believe, has parts that are in 5/4, if not 5/4, then 10/8, or some other time signature that I thought was really cool. And it's very rare for black metal bands to do a different time signature effectively, but Rest, with his incredible drumming, is actually easily able to do that. And some people might look at the drumming on this album and think that it's not very good because it's an electronic drum kit, but Rest has always been an incredible drummer, and the electronic drums actually work very well in the mix as this sort of muddied up, disgusting sound. It honestly is great. It's a bit more streamlined and easier to track and less of a hazy experience than 10 Sublevel, but I think it's probably almost as worth it to check out. And I really believe they're both very much worth your time if you want to get into or are into black metal and you haven't checked them out yet. This is a great album. And next is a less great album, but still a great album. Spoiler alert, Dodsford, Suicide and the Rest of Your Kind Will Follow. 2-track DSBM, sort of in the vein of Make a Change, Kill Yourself. Kind of an interesting band here because, it's kind of one of those cultish bands that are like in the mid-level that people talk about sometimes, kind of like Kraft, but still a album worth checking out. It's slow, it's lethargic, it's bitter, it's DSBM. It is certainly not a groundbreaking listen, but it's atmospheric and entertaining. Both of them very repetitive tracks here. I think the second track is a little bit better because it is a little bit of more beefy riff. It's got a little more heft to it, but it's got a nice sort of Burzum inspired sort of sense of songwriting here, where it'll start with like a really long intro and it'll weave into something else, and it really builds these emotions for a really long time. I'm sure dedicated Dodsford fans will not like this one as much, but I thought it was great. Basically, it's not a waste of your time to listen to it, as derivative as it is. And up next is a Blackened Speed album, and this one you could probably disqualify from my chart, but I don't feel like it. Bewitched with Diabolical Desecration. This is like late first wave type thing. It takes place in like 94, so it's right in the heart of second wave, and yet it's still like a very old-fashioned like Blackened Speed, like a bit more on the yelly side. Riffs are a bit more fun. Sounds kind of Merciful Fate-esque, kind of Motorhead-esque, one of those things, but it is distinctly evil. I think the actual scales that the guitarist is using sound pretty evil and pretty black metal, so, that is to be appreciated. It's decently interesting, but it's pretty novelty, and I don't really feel like talking about much more, so I'm just going to say it's okay. But actually, there's actually another listen that I listened to instead of this one because I didn't feel like listening to Bewitched. I actually listened to Ugra Karma by Impaled Nazarene. This thing will turn anybody to ash because there's a slight grindcore and war metal influence there. I don't think it's actually there, but Rate Your Music says it's there. These songs are very fast, very hateful, very bitter. The whole thing is like if you took what's his name, the vocalist from Mayhem that isn't dead, isn't Attila, Maniac, that's the one. If you took him in the 2000s and you made his vocals every instrument and that like gross and like aggressive, that's probably what this would sound like here. And for it's successful. I think it did a good job. And up next is The Death Trip with Deep Drone Master. Not drone influenced at all. Kind of a joke, a cruel joke that whoever did this pulled on me. It's not another Menace Ruin that I was kind of hoping to check out this year. But no, you get very, very, very standard black metal. Norwegian for that. This is from Norway. It's got these crystal clear vocals that are in English, so I could actually understand them more often than not. Kind of a detriment in black metal sometimes because, if you can't write worth your salt, then you don't want me to hear it. But the production and the vocals do leave a bit to be desired, but overall, it's a decent black metal album. I don't understand the extreme hype about it. The longer songs here are excellent, but I do think the shorter songs have the flaws pretty evident. So I think this thing is good, but actually, I listened to Internal Cold's Perception of Death this month, so that one's here instead. And next we reach Over with Natin's Madrigal, the other Over black metal album. Last year I covered their folk album that I thought was going to be black metal for some reason. I didn't do any research on it, and then I had to disqualify it. But this one, luckily, is black metal, and it is better than their acoustic album, and it is amazing, and it does have a wolf on the cover, and it is super raw, and there actually is bass on this thing. I don't know who ever said there's no bass on this album, but there is bass. I can distinctly hear it a lot of the time. Someone was connecting it to And Justice for All by Metallica, and you can hear the bass here. No reason to say you can't. It's got some seriously huge sounding riffs, and they are wonderful. There's still plenty of the pagan black metal folk bits here and there that add that melodic flair that is really nice, but it is the production that is, of course, the star of the show, because the raw black metal sound is so perfect here. Over is a band I really should cover a lot more of their music, because as you guys probably know, this channel isn't just dedicated to black metal, even though it's pretty much my favorite genre at this point. I really should just cover their whole discography at some point. And maybe next year for Nothing But Black Metal in November, I'll cover one of their demos. Probably not, but I'm really fine with getting my teeth sunk into Natin's Madrigal, because this is just an incredible piece of work. The melodies are on fire. It's got that overwhelming, anguished feeling that Over has mastered. Not even melancholic, like a deep sadness. Yes, banger. This thing's great. And up next is a Gravis Terrae with For the Queen. Here's the thing about this. I'm not going to review it. If you want to text me privately, I'll tell you why. Nothing's wrong with this artist, though. I will say about this album, all I'm going to say about its quality, because this is a very small artist here. Very small. Literally one-man band from New York trying his best making raw black metal, and I already said I'd review it, so I'm gonna give a little bit. There are some good ideas here. I think if a couple of the songs towards the middle of the track list had a full band and were performed live and not recorded just directly onto like a Scarlett or whatever, that it would sound really cool. Maybe. Shadows over Ethelen, I think. My writing's bad. But I also re-listened to Anubi's Kai Pilnati's, it's a Lithuanian black metal that has a whole bunch of folk influence and saxophone and like piano and all this crazy stuff. That album's great. It's like this insane, weirdo black metal album that I think everyone can enjoy. And after both of those, I'm covering Nord by Cythereal. This is an album that people hyped up to no end. It is a pretty long album, about over an hour long. And guess what? It is your average run-of-the-mill, really, really normal, redundant, melodic black metal album. It's like Havakruunu, but not as good. And Havakruunu I don't even love. But they're okay. They're an okay band. I think their riffs are good. I don't think Cythereal's riffs are as good. Of course, this is melodic black metal, and it is popular because it does have some riffs, which you are here for, but I'm not here for because the production is lacking. a little bit. It's at this weird spot that's cleaner than most black metal, but it's not clean enough to really be considered as something else entirely. I give this one an okay. And instead of Cythereal Nord, it's melodic black metal, Immortal at the Heart of Winter, because I own that one and I'll count it today. Up next is Deathspell Omega with the Furnaces of Pelaginesia. Deathspell Omega is an incredibly influential, amazing band. If it's not for them and Bluthaus Nord, we wouldn't get the scary, creepy black metal that we're getting today. And both bands are pretty incredible. I think Deathspell Omega is probably better as far as I know. But this is their album that came out right when everyone was going to be mad at them for being politically different, even though they're not. It's like a guy that does vocals for them basically in session. But how does this album sound? It sounds sick. It's got really cool alien sounding guitar tones, which is a huge plus. It's honestly a super great entry point into the band. This is a less dissonant album than something like Paracletus, but I think it's something that's still super interesting. The riffs here are really the star of the show. They're angular and they're off kilter and they go crazy in the riff department, and it's something really has this evil atmosphere, but it's a lot more of a desolate atmosphere. It's got some doom elements that are also super nice. It's seriously hopeless sounding stuff, and it's very interesting. This thing gets a great. And while I'm on the topic of Deathspell Omega, their newest album from 2022 was amazing as well. Next, we're covering a popular band's less popular album, and this is a real classic here. This is The Return by Bathory. It has a second name of The Return of Darkness and Evil or something like that. It'd be funny if I hit that right on the dot. I swear I don't have anything open to check that, but if that was what it actually was, that'd be funny. And this is a early first wave black metal album, right before people would probably say black metal is truly invented, with probably the third Bathory album is when it really sounded more black metal with the more tremolo stuff. But with Bathory, it's kind of a band that no one will let you criticize, but I am going to analyze them real quick. And I do think they can be criticized, maybe not here, maybe once you get to the thrash metal stuff later, but this is clearly some thrashy black metal, and I can really boil it down to some formulas. Not that they're bad formulas, they're distinctly evil, but I can see why before second wave was truly hitting its stride, we got bands like Blasphemy, because they did basically become a much heavier version of Bathory, and bands like Sarcophago did the same thing as well, because The Return is straight up caveman riffs, dude. This thing you could teach a 10-year-old, you could teach a 5-year-old to play this album, because these riffs are easy peasy. Not that they're not sick, they're like grindcore almost, but the atmosphere is here. It's this raw production. It's like you took thrash metal and you simplified it. You made it stupid, but you made it awesome at the same time. The track Sadist is really the riff from Master of Puppets. I don't know what else to say about it. It sounds like Master of Puppets or Doom, if you want to be that guy, because Doom and the OG Doom riff and Master of Puppets are pretty similar as well, but we're not talking about that. It's really wild, and it has this really distinct dark atmosphere that I think is what people keep returning to this album for, no pun intended, but it's also, not to mention, pretty awesome. It's good riffs, good vocals, angry stuff, really dark feeling. You can tell there's some passion behind this project, and the fact that Quorthon did everything here is also very impressive, so I do give this thing a great. And next is a interesting album. This is a split. This is various artists with Crusade from the North. This is basically a Satyricon Darkthrone split, except it's Fenriz and Mr. Wong Raven from Satyricon, or Satyr, if you will, basically just showing off all their projects here. There were 3 projects on this album here that I didn't listen to before I heard it for the first time. There was Storm, which was basically the folk metal project that Fenriz and Satyr collabed on. There is Isengard, which shows up later on this chart. That is basically Fenriz's solo folk metal project. And there is Neptunian Towers, which is Fenriz's solo ambient project. But also showing up here, of course, is Satyricon and Darkthrone, and a track from the Wong Raven Dungeon Synth LP, which pretty sick. Unfortunately, this makes one of the most convoluted and confused albums I've heard in my life. Seriously, every track here feels like it's not supposed to be here. And it's honestly not the best from any of these bands. Darkthrone has a song from Panzerfaust, which is one of the less good songs off Panzerfaust, and they have an album from it's like the album that looks like Soulside Journey, but it's not Soulside Journey. It's got a bit of a doomy vibe coming from Darkthrone. It's got some Satyricon singles that didn't even exist before this. Storm is a band I never have to listen to again. I think Storm is actually kind of garbage. And Isengard. Interesting, because this song here actually will listen to in a future album on this chart, and actually liked it a lot more on that album than on Crusade from the North, and I can't explain why, other than I think this thing is just like a weird compilation that really is, it's more of a novelty than anything else. I do like the cover art though, and of course a lot of these songs are good, they just don't fit together. So I give this thing an okay. And let's replace Crusade from the North with Darkthrone, Transylvanian Hunger. I own that on CD, so I've been listening to that. So that's 15 albums. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are enjoying a couple of these more than I am. I've got some really exciting stuff to show very, very soon, but I hope you guys are enjoying this stuff so far. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Social media, all in the description down below if you'd like to subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate that as well. Likes, I love those. I would appreciate those also. And that's about it. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Have a good day. Bye.